The day my husband came home after 3 years. He brought a 7 months pregnant woman with him and told me she was his wife. By the end of that same afternoon, he would discover that the house he planned to take from me was never his to command. The money he had been spending wasn't nearly as hidden as he thought, and the wife he believed was too dependent to leave had already hired an attorney. But when the front door opened, I didn't know how satisfying his shock would eventually be. For one stupid second, I was happy. "Mom," Lily called from the dining room. "Someone's here." I wiped my hands on the dish towel and glanced at the clock. Margaret had gotten home from her cardiology appointment less than 2 hours earlier. She was resting in the recliner with a blanket over her legs, complaining that her new medication made everything taste metallic. Lily was working on a science worksheet at the table. I had chicken in the oven and a pot of soup simmering for Margaret because her stomach had been bothering her. It was an ordinary Thursday. Then Eric walked through the door. I froze. He looked almost exactly the same as he had on our last video call. Dark hair trimmed too neatly, expensive coat, the same watch I'd given him on our 5th anniversary, except video calls flattened people. Standing 10 feet away from him after nearly 3 years made my chest tighten. "Eric?" He gave me a strange smile. Not warm, not guilty, just careful. "Hey, Sarah." I stared at him. "You're home." "I'm home." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "You didn't tell me." I wanted it to be a surprise. I almost walked toward him. Almost. Then I noticed the second suitcase. It wasn't his. Cream-colored leather, gold hardware, a silk scarf tied around the handle. Before I could ask about it, Eric stepped aside. A woman walked in behind him. She was young, younger than me, although not by enough for that to be the part that hurt. She had glossy brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail, a camel-colored maternity coat, and one hand resting protectively over a very pregnant stomach. She looked at me. I looked at her. Neither of us spoke. Lily came around the corner. "Dad." Eric's whole face changed. "There's my girl." Lily ran toward him automatically, and he crouched to hug her. For 3 years, she had measured time by his promised visits. Spring break, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, her birthday. There had always been a reason. Flights were impossible. The project was behind schedule. A client was threatening to pull out. Someone on his team quit. His boss needed him in San Francisco. Once, he actually told our 8-year-old daughter that Daddy was building something important for our future. Now he kissed the top of her head like he had been gone 3 days. Lily pulled back first. Her eyes shifted to the woman. "Who's that?" Eric stood. His hand hovered near Lily's shoulder for a second before dropping. "Sarah," he said. "We need to talk." I didn't look at him. I looked at the woman's stomach. "How far along are you?" Her lips parted. Eric's jaw tightened. "Sarah." I repeated the question. "How far along?" The woman swallowed. 7 months. Something inside me went very still. 7 months. Not a mistake last weekend. Not one terrible night. Not something that had happened after our marriage had already ended. 7 months pregnant meant doctor's appointments, ultrasounds, baby names, furniture, planning. I looked at Eric. "Is it yours?" Margaret's recliner creaked behind me. "Sarah," she whispered. Eric exhaled through his nose like I was making the conversation harder than necessary. "Yes." I nodded once. It was almost funny. For months, I had imagined this moment. I had imagined screaming, throwing something, slapping him, demanding details. Instead, my voice came out so calm that Eric seemed unsettled by it. "What's her name?" The woman straightened slightly. "Madison." "Last name?" "Blake." Eric frowned. "Why does that matter?" I finally looked at him. "I like to know the full name of the woman carrying my husband's baby." Lily's face changed. She looked at me, then at Eric. "Dad." My heart broke at the sound of her voice. Eric glanced toward her. "Sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs for a little while?" "No, Lily." I said no. Her chin lifted. She had my stubbornness. Eric rubbed a hand over his mouth. "Fine. We'll explain everything." Margaret pushed herself upright. Her face had gone pale. "Everything?" she asked. Eric turned. "Mom." She stared at Madison's stomach, then at her son. "You have got to be kidding me." Madison shifted uncomfortably. Eric's shoulders stiffened. "Can everyone please calm down?" I almost laughed. Calm down. Sarah, don't do this. Do what? Turn it into a scene. I stared at him. You walked into our home with a pregnant woman. He winced. Madison looked at him. Our home? The words came out before I could stop them. Eric immediately said, Madison, not now. That was when I understood something. She had been told a story too. Not the truth. Maybe a version of it. But definitely a story. I crossed my arms. How long? Eric looked annoyed again. I had seen that expression hundreds of times over the past 3 years. Whenever I asked when he was coming home. Whenever I asked why he'd missed Lily's recital. Whenever I wanted to know why a hotel charge appeared on our credit card after he'd told me he was spending the weekend in the office. How long what? How long have you been sleeping with her? Madison's eyes flicked toward him. Eric said, it's more complicated than that. How long? He hesitated. Madison answered for him. 3 years. Margaret made a sound behind me. Lily whispered. 3 years? My fingers tightened against my sleeves. 3 years. The exact amount of time Eric had supposedly been sacrificing himself for us on the West Coast. He looked directly at me. Madison has been with me through everything out there. I couldn't believe the way he said it. Like he wanted credit. Everything? The project. The pressure. The travel. The late nights. She understood what my life was like. I nodded slowly. And I didn't? That's not what I said. I handled your mother's surgery. His eyes narrowed. Sarah. I handled her rehab. Her cardiac appointments. Her insurance appeals. I handled Lily's school. The house. The taxes. The repairs. Your mail. Your accountant. Your car registration. And every family emergency you weren't here for. Because I was working. I know. You reminded me constantly. His mouth tightened. There it was. The expression I knew better than almost anything else. The look Eric gave me whenever I stepped outside the role he had assigned me. Wife. Mother. Caretaker. Grateful dependent. He pointed toward the kitchen. And all of that was paid for because I was working. Margaret's eyes flashed. Eric. He ignored her. You want to make this a competition? Fine. I supported this family. I felt my face getting hot. You supported us? Yes. Interesting. He laughed without humor. Don't start pretending you've been struggling. Sarah, you haven't had to earn a paycheck in years. Madison looked down. Even she seemed embarrassed. I asked quietly, is that what you've been telling her? Eric's expression changed. What? That I don't work. That I sit around here living comfortably while you sacrifice yourself. I didn't say you do nothing. You just said exactly that. I said you don't have a job. Before I could answer, Margaret cut in. Do you know which hospital I was in last November? Eric turned toward her. What? The hospital. Mom. Come on. Which one? His face hardened. This isn't relevant. Margaret gripped the arms of the recliner. It was relevant when my heart started beating so fast I thought I was dying. He looked away. She continued. Do you know what medication they changed? No answer. Do you know who drove me there at 2 in the morning? Mom. Do you know who sat beside me for 7 hours? He raised his voice. This is between me and Sarah. Margaret stared at him. No, Eric. You made it everyone's business when you walked into my house with another woman. Madison blinked. Eric's head snapped toward her. Mom, don't. Margaret's voice turned colder. My house. There was a beat of silence. Eric recovered quickly. Fine. Your house. Legally. For now. For now. Those 2 words told me everything. Madison heard them too. Her expression relaxed slightly. So that was another promise he'd made her. Future inheritance. The house. Margaret's money. A life waiting for them in Charlotte. Eric slipped one hand into his coat pocket. We're not doing this tonight. I stared at him. We need time to adjust. I felt something close to disbelief. You think I need time to adjust? Yes. He gestured toward Madison. She's pregnant. She's tired. We drove in from the airport. We're all emotional. Margaret gave a short laugh. All emotional? Eric ignored her. Madison and I have been together for 3 years. I heard. We've built a life. Apparently. He inhaled. We also had a ceremony. That finally caught me off guard. What ceremony? His gaze moved to Madison. She lifted her chin. We were married. Lily gasped. Margaret said. What? I stared at Eric. You married her? He quickly added. It wasn't a civil marriage. I kept looking at him. We had a church ceremony. What does that mean? It means we made vows. Did you file for a marriage license? His expression hardened. No. So you're not legally married. That's not the point. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was one sharp, broken sound. Actually, Eric, when you already have a legal wife, that is very much the point. He flushed. Don't be petty. Petty. Emotionally. Madison is my wife. Margaret closed her eyes. I think that sentence hurt more than the pregnancy. Not because I still wanted to be emotionally married to Eric. Maybe months earlier it would have destroyed me. But hearing him say it while standing in front of the mother he had abandoned and the daughter he barely knew anymore made something finally snap into place. He wasn't ashamed. That was the part one had never fully prepared for. I had expected lies, tears, an apology, maybe even a pathetic request for forgiveness. Instead, he had come home proud. He believed he had won. Madison touched his arm. Eric, maybe we should go to a hotel tonight. No. He said it immediately. This is my home too. Margaret's brows lifted. He corrected himself. Our family home. Then he looked at me. And we need to figure out practical arrangements. I almost admired the audacity. What practical arrangements? Madison shifted. Eric hesitated just long enough for me to know I was about to hear something unbelievable. Madison needs the upstairs bedroom. I blinked. Our bedroom? She's 7 months pregnant. So, she can't be going up and down stairs constantly. I stared at him. Our bedroom is upstairs. I know. You want me to move out of my bedroom so your pregnant mistress can sleep there? Madison's face tightened. I'm not his mistress. I turned to her. You're pregnant by my husband. She looked wounded. He told me your marriage was over. I looked back at Eric. Was it? Eric sighed dramatically. Sarah, we haven't had a real marriage in years. You've been living 3,000 miles away. Exactly. I let that sit between us. He continued. You can use the downstairs guest room. It's temporary. My throat tightened. Temporary until what? He didn't answer. Madison spoke carefully. Eric said eventually we'd renovate the office as a nursery. I slowly looked at her. The office? She nodded. He said there was plenty of room upstairs. That office had once held my drafting table. After Lily was born, it became Eric's home office, then his storage room. Now, apparently, it belonged to his unborn son. Madison attempted a smile. I hope we can make this work. For everyone. I said nothing. She kept talking. Perhaps because silence made her nervous. I don't want conflict. Margaret actually scoffed. Madison flushed. I just mean, I know this is uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. I repeated. She looked down. I'm going to need rest after the baby comes. And I've been having trouble with certain smells. I waited. She gave me a small, apologetic smile. Eric mentioned you usually make breakfast in the mornings? That was the moment. Not the pregnancy. Not the affair. Not even the fake wedding. That question. What time do you make breakfast? Something in me went completely quiet. Eric glanced at me. Sarah? I untied my apron. Slowly. Carefully. Then I folded it once and set it on the kitchen counter. Eric frowned. What are you doing? I'm done. He looked almost amused. With dinner? With this. His smile disappeared. Don't be dramatic. I looked at Margaret. She was watching me with wet eyes. She knew. 3 months earlier, sitting at this same kitchen table, she had squeezed my hand and said, whatever you decide. Sarah, don't stay because you're afraid. At the time, I hadn't answered. Now I did. I'm not afraid anymore. Eric stared at me. What is that supposed to mean? I walked toward the stairs. Sarah. I kept going. Sarah. Behind me. Lily asked. Mom. I turned. She looked terrified. My anger vanished immediately. Come upstairs with me. Honey. Eric stepped forward. Why? I looked him straight in the eye. Because she's coming with me. His expression changed. You're not taking my daughter. I nearly laughed. Your daughter? Yes. My daughter. You missed her birthday. I was working. You missed her school play. I couldn't fly across the country for every little thing. Lily flinched. I saw it. So did Margaret. Eric didn't. I stepped closer. Don't ever call something important to her a little thing again. His nostrils flared. You're not using Lily to punish me. I don't need Lily to punish you. For the first time that afternoon, uncertainty flickered across his face. Good. Let him feel it. I took Lily upstairs. The suitcase was already in the back of my closet. Packed. Not completely. Just enough. Clothes. Documents. Medication. Lily's school records. My laptop. A folder I had built one page at a time over 3 months. Bank statements. Credit card charges. Wire transfers. Apartment payments. A jewelry purchase from Beverly Hills. Private medical bills. Hotel receipts. A church donation in Santa Barbara made the same weekend Eric had supposedly been in Seattle meeting investors. I had not been waiting for Eric to come home. I had been waiting until my attorney told me I had enough. Lily sat on my bed. Are you leaving, Dad? I knelt in front of her. I'm leaving the house tonight. Are you getting divorced? There are moments when you realize your child stopped being little while you were busy surviving. I touched her cheek. Yes. Her eyes filled. Is it because of the baby? No. That surprised her. I swallowed. It's because your dad made choices that hurt our family. For a long time. Does he still love me? My heart nearly broke. Yes. I hoped it was true. He loves you. But adults can love someone and still make selfish choices. She wiped her face. Can Grandma come? I smiled sadly. Grandma is staying here tonight. There was a knock. Margaret entered without waiting. She had used her cane to climb the stairs. I stood quickly. You shouldn't be up here. Don't start mothering me now. Despite everything. I almost smiled. She looked at the suitcase. Then at me. James is coming? I nodded. Eric shouted from downstairs. Who the hell is James? Margaret closed her eyes. Oh, for God's sake. I took the suitcase. Margaret caught my wrist. Sarah. I looked at her. Her mouth trembled. I'm sorry. You didn't do this. He's my son. Yes. I raised him better than this. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to choose between us tonight. Her expression hardened. He already made me choose. We went downstairs. Eric was standing in the foyer. Madison had removed her coat. He looked at my suitcase and laughed. Actually laughed. You were prepared. Yes. How long? I didn't answer. His eyes narrowed. Then someone knocked. I opened the door. James stood outside. Tall. Dark blonde hair slightly windblown. Charcoal jacket. Calm expression. His gaze moved from me to the suitcase. You ready? Yes. Eric stepped forward. And you are? James looked at me first. Not Eric. Do you want me to answer that? That tiny act of respect almost undid me. I nodded. James Sullivan. Eric stared. Sullivan. Yeah. The architect. James's eyes sharpened slightly. That's right. Eric looked at me. Then at James. A slow, ugly smile appeared. Oh. I knew that smile. So that's what this is. I sighed. What exactly do you think this is? You've already found somebody. James's jaw tightened. I touched his arm lightly. Not because I needed protection. Because I didn't want him wasting 1 second defending me to Eric. Eric laughed again. This is incredible. You've been cheating too. And now you're acting like the victim. I looked at him. You really need me to be as dishonest as you are. Don't you? His face changed. Sarah. Because otherwise you have to live with what you did. He stepped toward me. Don't walk away from me. I picked up my bag. I've spent 3 years waiting for you to come home. My voice shook once. Only once. You're finally here. I met his eyes. And I'm finally leaving. James took my suitcase. Lily hugged Margaret. Madison stood near the stairs, watching all of us with growing confusion. Eric still looked angry. Not scared. Not yet. He honestly believed I would be back within a week. Maybe 2. Once I remembered I had no job. Once I remembered he paid the bills. Once I remembered I was Sarah Bennett, the woman who had spent 9 years making everyone else's life easier. I got into James's SUV. Lily climbed into the back seat. James closed the trunk. Eric followed me outside. So that's it. I opened the passenger door. That's it. You're going to regret doing this. I paused. Then I smiled. Not because I felt strong. Not completely. My hands were still trembling. My marriage was still ending. My daughter was crying quietly behind me. But for the first time in years, Eric did not know something I knew. And that mattered. I got into the car and lowered the window. Eric? He folded his arms. What? Check your email. His expression turned almost mocking. What did you do? I didn't answer. James pulled away from the curb. I looked forward. My phone buzzed once, then twice, then 3 times. I didn't need to look. I knew exactly what had just been delivered. The first email was from my divorce attorney. The second was from Margaret's trust attorney. The third concerned the money Eric had quietly transferred from an account that had never belonged to him. Behind us, Eric Bennett was standing in the driveway of a house he believed he would inherit, beside a pregnant woman he believed would replace me, holding a phone that was about to explain just how badly he had miscalculated. For 3 years, Eric had thought I was waiting for him. He was wrong. I had been preparing for him. I didn't cry until we were 15 minutes away from the house. Even then, it wasn't graceful. There was no dramatic sobbing, no speech about betrayal, no moment where I pressed my forehead to the window and watched my old life disappear behind me. I just started shaking. James noticed before I did. Sarah, I'm fine. He glanced at my hands. No, you're not. I said I'm fine. My voice cracked on the last word. From the back seat, Lily was quiet. Too quiet. I looked over my shoulder. She had her face turned toward the window, but I could see the tears running down her cheeks. That broke me. I covered my mouth. I'm sorry. James kept both hands on the wheel. For what? I don't know. That was the truth. I was sorry for everything. For staying so long. For not seeing it sooner. For seeing it and still hoping. For Lily hearing her father say another woman was his wife. For Margaret having to watch her son humiliate the woman who had been caring for her. For leaving dinner in the oven. That last thought was so ridiculous I laughed through my tears. James looked at me. What? The chicken. What chicken? I left dinner in the oven. For half a second, he looked like he didn't know whether I was joking. Then his expression softened. Margaret knows how to turn off an oven. I know. And Eric is a grown man. That part is debatable. A sound came from the back seat. Lily laughed. Just once. It was small, but it was enough to pull me together. James glanced at her in the rearview mirror. There she is. Lily wiped her face quickly. Embarrassed. Where are we going? To the apartment. I said. Your apartment? Temporary apartment. Does Dad know? No. Is he going to be mad? I looked at her. He's already mad. She considered that. Then she asked the question I had been dreading. Is Madison really his wife? My chest tightened. No. But he said. They had a ceremony. They didn't get legally married. Because he's married to you? Yes. She frowned. So he lied? I hesitated. James said nothing. That was one thing I had come to appreciate about him. He never filled silence just because it made him uncomfortable. I answered carefully. Your dad has said things that aren't true. Lily looked down at her backpack. Did he lie to me? I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect Eric for one more minute, because I had spent 9 years doing exactly that. Instead I said, sometimes. Her face crumpled. I turned fully in my seat. But listen to me. None of that has anything to do with how lovable you are. None of it. She nodded without looking at me. James asked softly, want some food? Lily sniffed. I'm not hungry. You're 8. You're always hungry. She gave him a weak smile. Maybe fries. Fries I can do. That was how the worst day of my marriage ended. With my daughter eating French fries from a paper bag in the back seat of James Sullivan's SUV, while I stared at 3 unread messages from my attorney. I didn't open them. I already knew what they said. What I didn't know was how Eric had reacted. That came 20 minutes later. My phone rang. His name lit up the screen. James looked at me. You don't have to answer. I know. I answered anyway. Hello. Eric didn't bother with a greeting. What the hell did you do? His voice was so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. Which email are we talking about? Don't play games with me. I'm not. You filed for divorce? Yes. You filed before today? Yes. There was silence. Not shock. Calculation. I could almost hear his brain working backward through the last 3 months, wondering when he had slipped. When? 3 weeks ago. You had no right. I actually laughed. I had no right to divorce my husband? You knew I was coming home. No. Eric. I didn't. Then why was your suitcase packed? Because I knew you were cheating. Another silence. This one felt different. He lowered his voice. How? I looked down at my hands. 3 months earlier. I would have given anything to hear fear in that voice. Now it just sounded pathetic. You should probably ask your lawyer. Sarah, you're going to need one. He inhaled sharply. Then his anger came back. And what the hell is this trust notice? I closed my eyes. There it was. Not how is Lily? Not where are you staying? Not can we talk about what I did? The house. Always the asset first. What about it? You knew Mom changed the trust. Yes. You helped her. Yes. You manipulated her. My eyes opened. James glanced at me. I shook my head slightly to tell him I was fine. No. Eric. You've been living under her roof. Taking care of her bills. Controlling her appointments. Careful. You took advantage of a sick woman. Something cold moved through me. Your mother asked you to come home after her surgery. I was working. She asked again after the cardiac episode. I was working. She asked you to visit when she thought she might need another procedure. I couldn't drop everything. No. You dropped us. He went quiet. I continued. She hired her own attorney. Her doctor documented her mental capacity. I didn't choose the terms. You're a beneficiary. At her insistence. That's convenient. I almost told him then. I almost told him about the emails I had sent the trust attorney asking that Eric not be completely cut out. I almost told him Margaret had originally wanted to remove him from everything except a token amount. I didn't. He would learn soon enough. Then his voice changed again. The third email. I leaned back. What about it? You reported me to the bank. No. Don't lie to me. I didn't report you. Then why are they reviewing Mom's accounts? Because her attorney found transfers she didn't recognize. That's none of your business. It became my business when I had to explain to your mother why her balance was lower than she expected. I had authorization for household expenses. I was helping her. I stared at the dashboard. You paid Madison's apartment rent from your mother's account. Nothing. Eric, that's not what happened. You bought jewelry. It was a transfer issue. You paid for a private clinic. Sarah. And now the bank wants to know why. He cursed under his breath. Then he did what Eric always did when facts stopped helping him. He attacked me. How long have you been sleeping with James? I felt James stiffen beside me. I turned toward the window. I'm not doing this. That's what I thought. You don't get to invent an affair because yours became inconvenient. He came to pick you up. Yes. You had a bag packed. Yes. You filed for divorce before I got home. Yes. So tell me what I'm supposed to think. I laughed quietly. That I finally got tired of being stupid. His voice dropped. Don't talk like that. Why? You did. When? For years. He said nothing. I hung up. My hands were shaking again. James waited. Then he asked, You want coffee? That was it. No, you should block him. No, I told you so. No speech about how terrible Eric was. Just coffee. I looked at him. You're very committed to beverages. It's one of my better qualities. I laughed despite myself. And suddenly, without warning, I started crying again. James pulled into a parking lot. Lily was still working on her fries. He turned off the engine. I pressed my fingers to my eyes. He brought her into my kitchen. My voice broke. James didn't answer. She asked me what time I make breakfast. His jaw tightened. I heard. I know she's not the point. She's part of it. He looked at me like I was staff. I took a breath that hurt. Like I was lucky he wasn't throwing me out. James looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, That says something about him. Not you. I shook my head. You don't understand. I probably don't. I let this happen. No. I quit my job. You raised a child. I stopped designing. You still know how. I spent years making his life possible. Yes. And he was right about one thing. James frowned. What? I haven't earned a paycheck in years. He leaned back. Sarah, it matters. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Then let me ask you something. I looked at him. Who managed Margaret's rehab schedule? I did. Who appealed the insurance denial? I did. Who hired the roofing contractor? I did. Who caught the estimate error on my subcontractor's bid last summer? I blinked. That was obvious. It saved almost $4,000. I shrugged. Okay. Who redesigned Margaret's bathroom layout? I hesitated. You did. No. I drew what you told me. That's not the same. It is when the person telling me knows exactly what clearances a walker needs, where someone with limited hip mobility can safely turn, and why a towel bar mounted at the wrong height becomes useless. I looked away. James continued. You keep saying you didn't work. I didn't have a job. That's not the same thing. That sentence stayed with me. Maybe because 1 year earlier, I had said almost the exact same thing to him. I had met James again because Margaret almost fell getting out of the shower. She had been home from hip surgery for several months, but her balance was still bad. One morning I heard her shout. I ran upstairs and found her gripping the sink. I'm fine, she snapped. You almost fell. I did not. You are standing barefoot on a wet towel holding the counter with both hands. She glared at me. I dislacchiortone. I'm calling someone. For what? To fix this bathroom. She resisted for 2 weeks. Then her physical therapist sided with me. A contractor recommended an architect who did residential accessibility projects. When James walked into the house, he stared at me for 3 seconds. Sarah? I stared back. He smiled. Sarah Morgan? That had been my maiden name. It's Bennett now. I know. You know? You married Eric Bennett. I laughed awkwardly. That sounds alarming. We worked on the Monroe house. I remembered immediately. 6 years before Lily was born. My firm had handled the interiors. James had been the junior architect who kept arguing with me about the staircase lighting. You hated my fixtures. They were impractical. They were beautiful. They were impossible to service. They won an award. He grinned. I still hated them. For the first time in years, someone spoke to me as if I had existed before becoming Mrs. Eric Bennett. Then he looked around the bathroom. You still designing? No. He tilted his head. I used to. That wasn't my question. I had laughed then because I thought he was teasing me. He wasn't. He handed me graph paper. What would you change? I stared at it. I'm not your client. Margaret is. You're the one keeping her upright. So I drew. Just a rough plan. Move the shower controls. Widen the opening. Reposition the vanity. Add better lighting. Use support bars that looked residential instead of medical. James studied the sketch. This is good. It's basic. It's good. That was how it started. A bathroom. Then a neighbor's kitchen. Then a retired couple James knew who wanted to stay in their home after one of them had knee surgery. The first time he asked if I wanted to consult on a project, I said no. I've been out of the industry for 8 years. So people don't hire designers who disappear for 8 years. You didn't disappear. I became a stay-at-home mom. He shrugged. Okay. I stared at him. That's it. What do you want me to say? That it's a huge gap. It's a gap on a resume. Not in your brain. I didn't take the job that day. I did 2 weeks later. That was around the same time I started noticing Eric's money. At first, it was one charge. $900 at a jewelry store in Beverly Hills. I texted him. What's this? His answer came 20 minutes later. Client gift. I believed him. Or tried to. Then there was a furniture company. Then a recurring payment to an apartment complex in Los Angeles. Then a resort in Napa on a weekend when Eric had told me he was stuck in an office. When I asked, he got angry. Do you audit every dollar I spend now? No, because it feels like it. I'm trying to understand our finances. I understand our finances. That's not what I asked. His voice turned sharp. I'm out here making money. Sarah, you're at home. Can you please let me handle something? I apologized. That memory embarrassed me more than anything. I apologized. 2 weeks later, I saw a charge from a private obstetrics practice. I stared at the statement for almost an hour. Then I searched the address tied to the apartment payment. A name came up. Madison Blake. Her social media was careful. No obvious photos of Eric. No kissing. No captions about a married man. But one picture showed a dinner table. Champagne. A man's hand. His wedding ring. My wedding ring. The one I had chosen. I saved the photo. Then another. Then every statement I could access. I did not call him. I called an attorney. Rachel Coleman listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Do you want advice or permission?" I stared at her. What? Advice on what to do? Or permission to stop pretending this marriage is healthy? That nearly made me cry. Advice. Good. She leaned forward. Don't confront him yet. I blinked. Why? Because people who hide money become more careful when they know you're watching. She slid a yellow legal pad toward me. Document everything. So I did. Bank statements, credit cards, transfers, taxes, insurance, property records. Then Margaret noticed money missing. That was the moment everything changed. She came into the kitchen holding an old bank statement. Sarah, did I spend $12,000 in February? I looked at her. No. Did I give Eric $12,000? I felt my stomach drop. I don't know. She looked at me. You know something. I could have told her. Instead I said, let's call the bank. She stared at me. You're still protecting him. He's your son. And you're my family. I didn't know what to say. Margaret sat across from me. He used to manage this account before my surgery. I know. I never removed the authorization. My hands went cold. 3 transfers, all connected to the same period as Madison's apartment payments. Margaret looked at the numbers. Then she looked at me. Sarah. Yes. I want a lawyer. Margaret. Not Eric's lawyer. She gave me a hard look. My lawyer. And that was the beginning of the trust. Not revenge. Not manipulation. Preparation. Margaret's attorney met with her without me in the room. Her doctor documented that she understood exactly what she was doing. When she told me she wanted to place the house into a trust and give me management authority, I refused. No. She frowned. Why? Because Eric will say I did this. You didn't. He'll say I manipulated you. Then let him. I don't want you making decisions because you're angry. Margaret stared at me. I'm not angry. She tapped one finger against the table. I'm informed. I still asked the lawyer to preserve something for Eric. There were emails, dates, records. I had no idea then how important they would become. Now, sitting beside James with my daughter in the back seat, and my marriage officially collapsing, I finally understood something. Eric had spent 3 years assuming nothing changed when he wasn't looking. He thought I stayed home. He thought Margaret stayed dependent. He thought Lily stayed little. He thought his money stayed invisible. He thought I stayed the same woman he had left behind. My phone rang again. This time it was Rachel. I answered. Hi. Eric received everything. I know. He called my office 6 times. That sounds like him. He's claiming undue influence over Margaret. I know. He also accused you of having an affair with James Sullivan. James raised an eyebrow. I sighed. Also sounds like him. Rachel paused. Then her voice changed. There's something else. I sat straighter. What? Eric's attorney sent a demand for full financial discovery. For the first time all day, I smiled without forcing it. James noticed. Rachel continued. I assume you understand what that means. Yes. He wants to examine everything. Yes. Sarah? I looked down at the folder resting beside my feet. 3 years of records. 3 months of organized evidence. Every transfer Eric thought nobody would notice. Let him. Rachel laughed softly. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I ended the call. James looked at me. What happened? I leaned back against the seat. Eric wants a full investigation. That sounds bad. For somebody. For you? I shook my head. No. For the first time since I had seen Madison standing in my foyer with one hand on her pregnant belly, the fear inside me loosened. Eric had spent years telling me I didn't understand money, that I didn't understand business, that I didn't understand how hard the real world was because I stayed home. Now he had demanded that lawyers examine every number, every account, every decision. He thought he was opening my life. What he had actually opened was his. And this time, I wasn't going to protect him. Eric called me before 7 the next morning. I let it ring twice before answering. What? His breathing was heavy. You need to come back here. No. Sarah. I'm serious. So am I. This trust document is ridiculous. I sat up in bed. Lily was still asleep in the next room of the furnished apartment James had helped me find. What part are you having trouble understanding? Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I didn't. You have management authority over my mother's house? Partial authority. And beneficiary rights? Yes. He gave a sharp laugh. You planned this. I rubbed my forehead. We already had this conversation. No, we didn't. Yesterday you ran away before I could get answers. I left after you brought your pregnant girlfriend into the house and told me to move into the guest room. She is not my girlfriend. I closed my eyes. Please don't say wife. She is my partner. Congratulations. Stop acting like this is funny. It isn't. My voice hardened. That's why I filed for divorce. He went quiet for half a second. Then he said, "You are not taking that house." I almost admired how quickly he could make every conversation about property. It isn't mine to take. You know what I mean? No, Eric. I really don't. That house has been in my family for 30 years. It belongs to your mother. I'm her only child. And someday it comes to me. There it was. I leaned back against the headboard. Did Margaret tell you that? She didn't have to. That may be your problem. His voice dropped. You turned her against me. No. You were there every day. You controlled her appointments. You handled her bills. You drove her everywhere. Because you asked me to. That doesn't give you the right to insert yourself into her estate. I didn't. You're named in the trust. At her request. You expect me to believe Mom suddenly decided her daughter-in-law deserved part of my inheritance? I felt my anger sharpen. Your inheritance? Yes. Your mother is alive. Silence. I continued. You talk about her money like she already died. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. He cursed under his breath. Then I heard Madison in the background. Eric? His voice changed immediately. Go back upstairs. I've got this. I stared at the phone. Of course he did. He always had it. Until he didn't. You need to tell Mom to fix this, he said. No. Then I will. Good luck. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Margaret called. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Your husband is having a tantrum. I winced. Former husband in progress. Not fast enough. Despite everything. I smiled. What happened? He told me I was confused. My smile vanished. He what? He said I must not have understood the trust. Margaret. I asked him which part he thought confused me. I could picture her expression. Lips thin. Chin lifted. The same look she used when Lily tried to explain why homework had somehow fallen behind the couch. What did he say? That you pressured me. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for him. Then I heard a man's voice in the background. Eric. Mom. Give me the phone. Margaret ignored him. Sarah. Did you know Madison already ordered furniture? I sat up straighter. What? For the office. You're kidding. I wish. Eric raised his voice. Mom. Margaret snapped. If you shout at me again, you can leave now. The line went quiet. Then I heard Madison say something softly. Margaret lowered her voice. She showed me pictures this morning. I almost laughed from disbelief. What kind of pictures? A crib. A dresser. Wallpaper with little sailboats. Of course. She asked whether the closet shelves could be removed. I pressed my fingers to my temple. What did you say? That she should not unpack. Margaret paused. Then she said, I'm asking them to leave. I exhaled. Are you sure? Yes. You don't have to do it because of me. I'm not. Her voice was firm. I'm doing it because a woman I met yesterday started renovating my house before breakfast. That made me laugh. Margaret did too. Then her voice softened. Are you all right? No. Good. I blinked. What? I'd worry if you said yes. My throat tightened. I'll be okay. I know. She ended the call. Less than an hour later, Eric called again. This time he was furious. She threw us out. I stared at the coffee in my hand. She asked you to leave. This is my mother. Yes. I have every right to stay there. No, you don't. Sarah, stop hiding behind paperwork. I'm not hiding. You have temporary control over an old woman's trust, and suddenly you think you're powerful. My hand tightened around the mug. An old woman? She's vulnerable. She's 64. She has heart problems. That doesn't make her incompetent. You know what I mean? I do. And that was the problem. He believed Margaret's weakness belonged to him, that her surgery, her heart condition, and her age made her easier to dismiss. He had no idea how angry that was going to make her attorney. Eric kept talking. I'm challenging the trust. Okay. He stopped. That's all you have to say? Yes. You think I won't? I think you should. There was a pause. He sounded suspicious now. Why? Because then everyone gets to look at the records. Another pause. You're threatening me. No. I took a sip of coffee. I'm encouraging you. He hung up. By noon, the family group chat exploded. Eric had always been good at telling a story before anyone else had a chance. His Aunt Diane messaged first. Sarah, I'm hearing some very disturbing things. Then his cousin Matthew. Can someone explain what's going on with Aunt Margaret's house? Then Diane again. Eric says Sarah arranged legal documents while Margaret was medically vulnerable. I stared at the screen. 3 years of silence. 3 years in which none of them asked who took Margaret to physical therapy, who drove her to the emergency room, who fought with the insurance company when rehab coverage was denied. Now everyone cared deeply about her welfare, because Eric had said the word inheritance. I started typing. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted that too. Finally, I wrote one sentence. Margaret had independent legal counsel, and her physician documented full capacity. Anything else should go through the attorneys. Diane called immediately. I almost declined. Then I answered. Hi, Diane. What is going on? Her voice was breathless. Eric says Margaret changed everything. She changed her trust. And put you in charge? Partially. Sarah, you have to understand how that looks. I leaned against the counter. How what looks? You were living with her. Yes. You were caring for her. Yes. And now you benefit financially. So. She hesitated. So people are concerned. Were people concerned when she had surgery? That's different. Were you concerned last November when she was in the ER? I didn't know. Exactly. Diane went quiet. I continued. Do you know who called Eric that night? No. I did. And he didn't come. Sarah. He was working in California. I know. He told me. I heard her sigh. I'm not defending everything Eric did. Then don't. But he is her son. And Margaret is still alive. Another silence. I lowered my voice. Ask him where Madison's apartment rent came from. Diane stopped breathing for a moment. What? Ask Eric. I ended the call. That was the first crack. The second came from Lily. Eric was supposed to pick her up Saturday afternoon. Our attorneys had advised us to keep things calm while temporary custody arrangements were worked out. I told myself I could handle 2 hours. When Eric arrived, he looked tired. No expensive coat. No smug smile. Madison wasn't with him. Lily stood beside me with her backpack. Eric crouched. Hey, kiddo. Hi. He opened his arms. She hesitated. Just for a second. But he noticed. His face tightened. You're not going to hug me? She did. Barely. He looked at me over her shoulder. I knew that look. Blame. Always blame. He straightened. Where are you staying? You have the address. I know. He glanced around. Is James here? No. Does he stay here? My expression hardened. No. Lily looked between us. Eric smiled at her. So, sweetheart, does Mr. Sullivan come over a lot? I felt something inside me snap. Eric. He ignored me. Does mommy have dinner with him? Lily frowned. Sometimes. He looked at me triumphantly. I stepped forward. Do not use her to investigate me. I'm asking my daughter a question. No. You're asking an 8-year-old to participate in your divorce. His face reddened. I have a right to know who is around her. Then ask me. I did. And I answered. He laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe nothing happened between you two? I lowered my voice. Not in front of Lily. You're the one who brought him into her life. James has been around for a year because he worked on your mother's house. Sure. Lily suddenly said. Dad. We both stopped. She looked upset. Why did you say my play was a little thing? Eric blinked. What? When Mom said you missed it. His face changed. That's not what I meant. You said you couldn't fly home for every little thing. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Lily stared at him. I was the narrator. I almost cried. Eric crouched again. Sweetheart. I know. No, you don't. His expression hardened slightly. Not at her but at me. He thought I had coached this. I could see it. Lily. I said softly. You can still go with Dad if you want. She looked at him. Then at me. I want Grandma. Eric stood. Your grandmother needs rest. She said I could come over. His jaw tightened. Mom is not making decisions right now. I went still. What did you just say? He realized too late. I mean she's under stress. No. I stepped closer. You said she's not making decisions. Sarah, do you hear yourself? He rolled his eyes. You twist everything. No. You keep saying it clearly. Lily took my hand. I don't want to go. Eric stared at her. Lily. She shook her head. I want to stay with Mom. For the first time, I saw real panic in his face. Not about losing me, about losing control of the picture he had in his head. The returning father, the successful son, the man everyone still needed. He looked at me. You did this. I stared back. No, Eric. You turned my daughter against me. She remembers who showed up. His face went white. He left without saying goodbye. That night, Rachel called. I have an update. I sat at the small dining table with my laptop open. What kind? The kind where your husband's attorney is creating problems for his own client. I smiled. What did he do? They formally requested Margaret's financial records. All of them? 3 years. I leaned back. Good. Rachel laughed softly. I thought you might say that. What happens next? We produce what's relevant. And the transfers? Oh, they're relevant. My stomach tightened. How bad? Worse than we originally thought. I stopped smiling. Rachel continued. There are multiple transfers from Margaret's old account to an account Eric controlled. How much? We're still tracing it. My hands went cold. But several payments line up with Madison Blake's apartment. I said nothing. And there's more. What? A jewelry purchase. I closed my eyes. I already knew. The ring. That's my guess. I thought of Madison standing in Margaret's foyer with one hand over her stomach. Beautiful ring. Beautiful coat. Beautiful story. She thought Eric had built her a future. She didn't know whose money had paid for it. Rachel continued. Eric claims he had authorization. He did. Years ago. That helps explain access. Does it protect him? Not if the authorization was for Margaret's benefit, and he used the funds for himself. I heard papers moving. Sarah? Yes. He asked for this investigation. I smiled slowly. I know. The next morning, Margaret called me. Her voice was unusually quiet. I saw the statement. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. Stop saying that. Then she asked, did he buy her ring with my money? I couldn't lie. It looks that way. There was a long silence. When Margaret spoke again, her voice trembled. I would have given him money if he asked. I know. That's the part one don't understand. I swallowed. He didn't want permission. No. Her voice hardened. He wanted ownership. That afternoon, Madison called me. I almost didn't answer. Her name wasn't saved, but I recognized the California number. Hello. Silence. Then, Sarah? Yes. Her voice sounded smaller than it had in my house. It's Madison. I know. Another pause. Then she asked a question I hadn't expected. Did Eric really never file for divorce? I looked at the wall. No. He told me papers had been started 2 years ago. They weren't. He said you refused to sign. I was never given anything to sign. Her breathing changed. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not yet. But I heard fear. He told me the house would be his. I know. How? Because he told me to. That silenced her. Then I asked, Madison? Yes. Did he tell you Margaret wanted you there? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Before she hung up, she whispered, I think he lied to me. I looked down at the bank records beside my laptop. No. My voice was calm. He lied to both of us. But there was one difference now. I had finally stopped believing him. And Madison was just beginning. Madison called me again 2 days later. This time, she asked to meet. My first instinct was no. My second was also no. Then she said, I found something Eric didn't want me to see. So I agreed. I chose a coffee shop near South Park. Somewhere public and nowhere near Lily. Madison was already seated when I arrived. Without Eric beside her. She looked different. Still beautiful. Still polished. But tired. Her hair was pulled back. And there was no expensive coat. No careful smile. No hand resting proudly over her stomach. Like she was posing for a photograph. She stood when she saw me. Thanks for coming. I sat across from her. You said you found something. Straight to the point. Her mouth tightened. I guess I deserve that. I'm not here to make you feel better. I know. She lowered herself into the chair and placed her phone on the table. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Eric told me your divorce was delayed because you refused to cooperate. I know. He said you threatened to keep Lily from him. I never did. He said his mother didn't like me because you poisoned her against me. I looked at her. You had never met Margaret. Madison flinched. I know that now. She unlocked her phone. There are messages. Between you and Eric? She nodded. I saved all of them. Good. She looked surprised. You're not going to ask me to send them to you? If my attorney needs them, she'll request them. Madison stared at me. You're very calm. I wasn't 3 months ago. She looked down. Then she said quietly, when did you find out about me? About 3 months before he came home. Her head snapped up. You knew? Yes. And you didn't call me? No. Why? I almost smiled. You really wanted that phone call? No, but. She stopped. I waited. She shook her head. I don't know. I guess I thought if you knew, you would fight for him. That surprised me. Fight you? Yes. Why? Her expression turned defensive. Because he was your husband. He still is. Her face tightened. I didn't soften the statement. She had known. Whatever Eric had lied about. She had known he was legally married. Madison folded her hands over her stomach. He told me the marriage was dead. A dead marriage still requires a divorce. I know. Did you? Her eyes flashed. That's not fair. No. What happened to me wasn't fair. She looked away. I let the silence sit. Finally, she whispered. I knew he was married. There it was. I knew technically. Technically married is married. I know. Good. Her eyes filled. But she did not cry. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm glad. She breathed out slowly. I just need to know what else he lied about. I looked at her. That could take a while. A bitter laugh escaped her. He said your marriage had been over for years. He called me on our anniversary 6 months ago. She went still. He did? Yes. What did he say? That he wished he were home. Madison's face changed. I continued. He sent flowers. She looked down at her hands. He was with me that night. Of course he was. I felt no shock anymore. Only exhaustion. She said. He told me he had to take a conference call. I almost laughed. That sounds like Eric. She swallowed. He said the house was practically his. It isn't. He said Margaret had always intended to leave it to him. Maybe she did once. And now? Now it's in a trust. She gave you part of it. At her insistence. Madison's eyes narrowed. Why would she do that? I could have told her the entire story. The emergency room. The dressing changes. The physical therapy. The nights Margaret cried because she thought she would never walk normally again. Instead I said, because I showed up. Madison looked away. Then she pushed her phone toward me. A photo was open. It showed a screenshot of a bank transfer. Eric had sent Madison money the previous spring. The memo line said household expenses. What am I looking at? I asked him where this came from, and he said it was his project bonus. My stomach tightened. Madison looked at me. It wasn't. Was it? No. Her face went pale. She touched the ring on her finger. Then, very slowly, she asked, was this? I knew exactly what she meant. I don't know for certain yet. Her hand dropped. But you think it was his mother's money? Yes. Madison stared at the diamond. For the first time, she looked ashamed. He told me he bought it after closing a deal. I'm sure he did. She shook her head. You hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you. That hurt her more than anger would have. She sat back. I thought you were weak. I said nothing. He told me you didn't work. That you lived off him. That you wouldn't survive without his money. I felt an old wound open. Not because I believed it anymore. Because once, I had. What else? He said you refused to move on. I smiled without humor. That's interesting. What? He never asked me to. Madison stared at me. He never filed. No. He never even gave you divorce papers? No. Her eyes closed. For a long moment. She said nothing. Then she whispered. Why? I already knew the answer. He wanted both lives. She opened her eyes. I continued. You gave him excitement. I gave him stability. Her expression hardened. That makes me sound stupid. It makes him selfish. And me? You knew he was married. Her jaw clenched. I didn't take it back. Being deceived did not erase the choices she had made. Eventually she stood. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded. At the door. She turned. Sarah? Yes. I'm sorry. I looked at her. I believe you regret it. Her eyes lowered. That was all I was willing to give. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That evening, Eric was waiting outside my apartment. I stopped on the sidewalk. What are you doing here? We need to talk. No. 5 minutes. You have an attorney. This isn't about attorneys. That usually means it should be. His mouth tightened. He looked terrible. There were dark circles under his eyes. And his shirt was wrinkled. Eric Bennett did not wear wrinkled shirts. It almost made me nervous. Madison met with you. I said nothing. What did you tell her? The truth. He laughed sharply. Your version. There's only one version where you were married to me while having a church wedding with someone else. Keep your voice down. I stared at him. Why? He glanced toward the building. Lily could hear. She's at Margaret's. His shoulders relaxed. That irritated me more than it should have. He stepped closer. We can fix this. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. What? We can fix it. I stared. He continued quickly. Madison can stay somewhere else. I actually laughed. You're serious? I made mistakes. Mistakes? Yes. 3 years is a long mistake. I know. 7 months pregnant is a very committed mistake. His jaw tightened. You know what I mean? No, I don't. He shoved his hands into his pockets. We have 9 years together. You had 3 with her, Sarah, and apparently a wedding. It wasn't legal. You seemed very proud of it last week. His face reddened. I handled that badly. I stared at him. You brought her into your mother's house and told me to move downstairs. I said I handled it badly. You asked me to keep making breakfast. That was Madison. You stood there. He stopped. I watched something ugly pass across his face. Then he changed tactics. Think about Lily. I felt my entire body go cold. Don't. She needs both parents. She has both parents. Not like this. Like what? Broken. I stepped closer. You broke it. He exhaled sharply. Do you want me to beg? No. What do you want? That question stopped me. For years, Eric had never asked it. What do you want? Not what do we need? Not what should you do? What did I want? I want the divorce. He stared at me. You don't mean that. I do. You're emotional. I almost smiled. There he was again. The man who believed every decision I made was confusion until it benefited him. I was emotional when I stayed. His face changed. I'm not now. He lowered his voice. If you keep pushing this, Mom's trust gets dragged through court. You challenged it. You can make her withdraw it. No. You're going to destroy my relationship with my mother. I didn't transfer her money. His eyes hardened. There is no proof I stole anything. Then discovery will clear you. That shut him up. I tilted my head. You wanted the investigation. Remember? He stepped closer. This isn't a game. I know. My company could get dragged into this. That caught my attention. Why? His eyes shifted. Too fast. What did you do? Nothing. Eric. He looked away. Some of Madison's expenses had appeared on our personal accounts, but there had also been strange reimbursements from Eric's employer. Travel, client entertainment, temporary housing. My attorney had flagged them. I hadn't understood why yet. Eric rubbed the back of his neck. Accounting is asking questions. About? Expenses. What expenses? It's internal. I let out a breath. Did your company pay for Madison's apartment? No. Too fast again. Did they reimburse you? That's not the same thing. I stared at him. Oh my God. Don't. You billed your affair to your employer? I said don't. His face had gone red. I had housing allowances. For you. She lived with me. Exactly. He pointed at me. You don't understand corporate expenses. There it was. The old line. You don't understand money. You don't understand business. You stay home. This time, it didn't hurt. I almost smiled. No, Eric. What? I understand exactly enough. I walked past him. He caught my arm. Not hard, but enough. I stopped. We both looked at his hand. He released me immediately. Sarah. I faced him. His anger was gone. For one brief second, he looked scared. Please. I waited. I can lose everything. I stared at him. Then I said, you should have thought about that before spending everyone else's. I went inside. 2 days later, Margaret underwent an independent cognitive evaluation. Eric had demanded it. His attorney argued that her heart condition, medication, pain after surgery, and dependence on me might have affected her ability to understand the trust documents. The doctor disagreed. Completely. Rachel called me from her office. She passed with flying colors. I exhaled. Thank God. And the trust attorney provided his notes. What notes? All meetings, including the ones where he asked you to leave the room. I smiled. Eric won't like those. No. She sounded amused. He'll like your emails even less. I went quiet. What emails? The ones where you repeatedly asked Margaret's attorney not to completely disinherit Eric. I had forgotten how many there were. One after Margaret's first angry meeting with the lawyer. Another after she learned about the second transfer. A third after she wanted to remove Eric's name entirely. I had written, I understand Margaret is hurt, but I don't want her making an irreversible decision because of something she may someday wish she handled differently. Rachel continued, that doesn't exactly support his theory that you manipulated her for money. I leaned back in my chair. What happens now? His attorney probably advises him to drop the trust challenge. And will he? Rachel laughed. You know your husband better than I do. Then no. Probably not. She paused. One more thing. What? The bank expanded its review. My stomach tightened. And several transfers appear linked to payments for Madison's apartment, travel expenses, and the jewelry purchase. The ring. Likely. I closed my eyes. Rachel continued. Eric may argue he intended to reimburse Margaret. Did he? Not that we can see. So what happens? That depends on Margaret, the bank, and whether anyone determines the transfers exceeded his authority. I was quiet. I didn't feel triumphant. Not then. I thought about Margaret. She had trusted him. That was the crime beneath all the paperwork. Not the dollars. The trust. Later that afternoon, I met James at a client's house. The homeowners were in their 70s. Tom had Parkinson's. His wife, Carol, wanted to keep the home looking like a home. I don't want grab bars everywhere, she said. I don't want people walking in here and thinking hospital. I nodded. They won't. James leaned against the counter, listening. Carol looked at me. What would you do? I walked her through it. Reinforced walls so support bars could be added later. A curbless shower. Better lighting along the hallway. Lever handles. A bench that looked built-in instead of medical. A lower section of kitchen counter Tom could use seated. Carol listened carefully. Then she looked at James. She's good. James smiled. I know. The words hit me harder than they should have. On the drive back, he handed me a folder. What's this? Business registration information. I frowned. For what? Your company. I laughed. I don't have a company. You should. James. I'm serious. I'm barely working part-time. Because you keep calling yourself part-time. I have a divorce. A child. Margaret. Attorneys. And clients. 3 clients. 4. I looked at him. What? Carol called me 20 minutes ago. And she wants you to handle the design contract. I stared at him. You. No. He smiled. You. My pulse jumped. I'm not ready. James nodded thoughtfully. According to whom? I rolled my eyes. Don't do that. Do what? Turn my words against me. I didn't say those words. I looked away. He became serious. Sarah, you spent years letting Eric decide whether what you did counted. My throat tightened. He said staying home wasn't work. So you believed him. I didn't. You did. I looked at him. His expression was gentle, but he didn't back down. He said you didn't understand money. I said nothing. He said you weren't a professional anymore. Still nothing. And now you're waiting for somebody else to tell you you're allowed to become one again. I swallowed. What if I fail? James shrugged. Then you fail. I blinked. That's encouraging. You want me to lie? I laughed. He smiled. You could fail. Then his expression softened. But at least it would be your failure. I stared at the business registration folder. My company. The words felt ridiculous. Then possible. Then frightening. Then exciting. That evening, I showed the folder to Lily. She read the first page. Are you starting a business? Maybe. What would you call it? I don't know. She thought for a moment. Sarah's Houses. I laughed. That sounds like a doll company. She grinned. You could use Bennett. I paused. Bennett Residential Design. Lily nodded seriously. That sounds expensive. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. Then she looked at me. You used to do this before I was born? Yes. Her smile faded. Did you stop because of me? My heart dropped. No. But you stayed home. I did. Because I was a baby. You sat beside her. Lily, look at me. She did. I chose to stay home because I wanted that time with you. But if you didn't have me, no. I took her hand. Never finished that sentence. Her eyes filled. I loved being your mom. I still love being your mom. Then why are you working now? I smiled. Because loving you and having dreams are not opposites. She stared at me. Then she leaned against my shoulder. I think Sarah's houses is still better. Noted. The next morning, another message came from Eric. Family mediation has been scheduled. I want everyone there. Mom. Diane. Anyone you've lied to. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Rachel. She called almost immediately. He wants relatives there? Apparently. He says he wants everyone to hear the truth. There was a pause. Then Rachel laughed. What? Nothing. Rachel. I was just thinking. About? He finally asked for exactly what we need. I looked at the stack of documents beside me. Medical evaluations. Trust records. My emails. Bank statements. Credit card charges. Transfers. 3 years of Eric insisting that I didn't understand the world outside our home. I smiled. For the first time, I was looking forward to hearing him explain it. All right, I said. Rachel's voice became businesslike. I'll prepare everything. No. She paused. What? Prepare everything he asked for. Another pause. Then she understood. Everything? I looked at Eric's message one more time. He wanted an audience. Fine. This time, I was going to give him one. Everything. Eric arrived at mediation wearing the suit he used for important meetings. That was the first thing I noticed. Dark navy, white shirt, conservative tie. He looked like a man who expected to win. Madison sat beside him, but there was space between their chairs. She wasn't wearing the diamond ring. I noticed that too. Eric noticed me looking. His mouth tightened. Rachel touched my arm. Don't react. I'm not. You're smiling. I know. Across the table. Aunt Diane avoided my eyes. Eric had insisted she attend because, according to the message he sent his attorney, she had direct knowledge of Margaret's condition. What Diane actually had was a handful of holiday phone calls and Eric's version of events. Margaret entered last. She walked with her cane and refused the wheelchair the building had offered. Eric stood immediately. Mom. Margaret didn't answer. She took the chair beside me. Eric stared at her. You're sitting with Sarah? Margaret looked at him. I'm sitting in a chair. Rachel lowered her head, hiding a smile. Eric's attorney, Thomas Reed, cleared his throat. We're here to discuss several related issues. The validity of the amended family trust, disputed use of assets, and potentially an agreement that avoids further litigation. Eric leaned back. I'm willing to be reasonable. Margaret gave a small snort. He looked at her. What? Nothing. Thomas continued. Our concern remains that Mrs. Bennett made substantial changes to her estate planning during a period of serious health problems, while relying heavily on Sarah for daily care. I felt Margaret stiffen beside me. Rachel said calmly, We've provided the medical evaluation. We have. Then you know she had full capacity. Thomas shifted a folder. We acknowledge the evaluation. Eric interrupted. 1 evaluation. Rachel looked at him. 3. Actually. His eyebrows drew together. What? Rachel opened a file. Your mother's primary care physician documented normal cognition 3 weeks before the trust amendment. Her cardiologist did the same during a medication review, and the independent specialist you requested last month found no evidence of impairment. Eric looked at his attorney. Thomas spoke quietly. We discussed this. Eric's jaw tightened. Margaret leaned back. You wanted doctors to prove I was confused. Mom. That's not what I wanted. You told everyone Sarah took advantage of a sick old woman. I was protecting you. Margaret laughed. It was not a happy sound. From the woman who took care of me? Eric rubbed his forehead. This is exactly what I mean. You defend her automatically. No. Margaret leaned toward him. I defend her because your accusations are lies. His face hardened. Thomas stepped in. Let's stay focused. Rachel nodded. Gladly. She slid several pages across the table. These are contemporaneous notes from Margaret's estate attorney. Thomas picked them up. Eric didn't. Rachel continued. Margaret met privately with counsel on 4 separate occasions. Sarah was not present when final terms were discussed. Eric's eyes moved toward me. I held his gaze. Rachel placed another document down. And these are emails Sarah sent during the same period. Eric gave a bitter laugh. I'm sure they are. Rachel read from one. I understand Margaret is angry, but I want to make sure Eric is not completely excluded because of decisions being made during a painful family conflict. Diane looked at me. Eric stopped smiling. Rachel picked up another page. Please explain to Margaret that management restrictions can protect the property without eliminating Eric's future interest entirely. Eric stared at the papers. What is this? Your wife trying to protect you, Margaret said. His head snapped toward her. I didn't ask her to. No. Margaret's eyes narrowed. You never asked her for much. You just expected it. That landed harder than anything Rachel could have said. Eric looked at me. You wrote these? Yes. Why? For a second, I couldn't answer, because that was the tragedy of it. Even after I had found Madison, even after I had seen the transfers, even after years of missed birthdays and broken promises, part of me still believed 9 years had to mean something. Because you were her son, I finally said. Eric stared at me, and because I didn't want Margaret making a decision she might regret later. Margaret touched my hand. I don't regret it. Eric looked away. Thomas cleared his throat again. Whatever Sarah's stated intentions, the financial benefit remains. Rachel nodded. Then let's discuss finances. Eric shifted in his chair. That was the first moment I saw his confidence crack. Only slightly, but I saw it. Rachel placed a bank statement in front of him. Do you recognize this account? Eric barely glanced at it. My mother's. You had access? Yes. For what purpose? Helping her manage expenses. Margaret spoke. Groceries, medical bills, repairs when I couldn't get to the bank. Rachel looked at Eric. Did that authorization include personal gifts to yourself? Thomas said. We should be careful about characterizing. Eric interrupted. I never stole anything. Rachel nodded. I didn't say you did. His face reddened. She turned a page. March 8th. $8,500 transferred to an account you controlled. Eric looked down. Household expenses. Which household? His eyes flashed. Excuse me? Rachel pushed another document forward. 3 days later, $6,000 from that account was paid toward the security deposit and first month's rent for Madison Blake's Los Angeles apartment. Madison closed her eyes. Diane whispered, Oh my God. Eric looked at Madison. Don't. She opened her eyes. Don't what? This is being presented out of context. What context? You know I was covering expenses. With your mother's money? I moved funds around. Madison stared at him. You told me that was your relocation allowance. It basically was. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Your employer might disagree. Eric glared at her. Thomas murmured. Eric. But Rachel wasn't finished. May 17th. $4,200. She turned another page. A resort in Napa. Eric's face went rigid. Diane looked at Margaret. Margaret said nothing. August 2nd. Rachel continued. $2,300 transferred, followed by a payment to a private obstetrics clinic. Madison's hand went instinctively to her stomach. Eric's voice sharpened. I intended to reimburse everything. Margaret finally spoke. When? He turned. What? When were you going to pay me back? I was sorting things out. For 3 years? Mom. You never told me. I had authorization. You had access. Margaret's voice rose for the first time. Those are not the same thing. Eric looked at his attorney. Thomas had stopped taking notes. Rachel reached for one final statement. I knew which one it was before she spoke. My stomach tightened anyway. October 11th. $12,800. Madison went still. Rachel looked at her hand, at the empty ring finger, then back at Eric. Purchased from Carlton Vale Jewelers in Beverly Hills. Nobody spoke. Diane's face had gone pale. Margaret's hands were trembling. Eric tried to laugh. It sounded terrible. That was my money. Rachel slid 2 statements side by side. No. The purchase was made from your personal account 48 hours after a transfer from Margaret's account in almost the same amount. I had funds already in there. You had a balance of $916 before the transfer. Silence. Madison looked at Eric. Was that my ring? He didn't answer. Eric. Madison. This isn't the time. Her face twisted. You told me you bought it with your bonus. I did get a bonus. Did you buy my ring with it? His silence answered for him. Madison slowly opened her purse. Then she pulled out a small velvet box. So she had brought it. She placed it on the table. Eric stared. What are you doing? I didn't know where it came from. Don't be dramatic. Madison laughed once. Her eyes filled. That's what you told her. His face changed. What? The day we came home. She shook her head. Don't be dramatic. Sarah, don't make a scene. Don't ask questions. She pushed the box toward him. You say that every time a woman notices what you're doing. Madison. No. Her voice cracked. You told me your mother wanted us there. I said she would adjust. You said the house would be ours. Eventually. Margaret slapped her palm against the table. No. Everyone went quiet. Margaret stared directly at Eric. My house was never your promise to make. His expression hardened. You always said it would be mine. I said you were my son. That means something. It used to. His face drained of color. Mom. She leaned forward. Do you want to know what changed? He didn't answer. Margaret continued anyway. 3 years ago. I had hip surgery. I know. No, you knew the date. Her voice trembled. You didn't know that I cried the first time the physical therapist made me walk down the hallway. Eric looked away. Sarah did. She pointed toward me. She held my arm when I was afraid I'd fall. Mom. I was in California. Yes. You knew that. Yes. I had a project. And Sarah had a child. He opened his mouth. Margaret kept going. She had your child. Your house. Your bills. Your mother. Your responsibilities. And somehow you still convinced yourself you were the one carrying everyone. Eric looked furious now. That's not fair. Margaret laughed bitterly. Fair? Her eyes shone. Last November. My heart started racing after midnight. I thought I was dying. I reached for her hand. She squeezed mine. Do you know who drove me to the emergency room? Eric said nothing. Sarah. I know. Who sat there for 7 hours? He looked at the table. Sarah. Who called you? You did. No. She shook her head. She did. I remembered standing in the hospital hallway, whispering into my phone so Margaret wouldn't hear me begging him to come home. His response had been, Sarah, there's nothing I can do from an airport. Call me when the doctor knows more. Margaret looked at him. You told her to call when there was news. Eric clenched his jaw. I had a meeting in 6 hours. Yes. Margaret nodded slowly. And when I came home, Sarah slept on the couch outside my room for 2 nights, because the medication made me dizzy. Diane wiped at her eyes. Eric noticed. You're all acting like I abandoned her on purpose. Margaret stared at him. You did. I was working. You were living with another woman. His face went red. For this family. Madison laughed. Everyone looked at her. She stared at Eric in disbelief. Don't you dare. Madison. You told me you stayed in California because of me. He stopped. She continued. You said the project could have been handed over a year ago, but you didn't want to come back to a dead marriage. I felt the room tilt slightly. Eric looked at her with pure fury. You don't understand what you heard. Oh, I understand now. I stared at him. You could have come home? Sarah, you said the project required you. It did. For all 3 years? Things changed. And you never mentioned that. I knew what home was like. The words came out before he could stop them. Nobody moved. I asked quietly, what was home like? Eric? He looked at me. I could see him searching for a safer answer. He didn't find one. Pressure. I almost smiled. Pressure? Mom was sick. Lily needed things. You were always asking when I was coming back. I felt something inside me finally break free. Not break apart. Free. So you stayed away because we needed you. That's not what I said. It is. I nodded slowly. Thank you. He stared at me. For what? For finally saying it clearly. Eric turned toward his mother. Mom. I made mistakes. Margaret's face hardened. But I'm still your son. There it was. The final card. Blood. The one thing he believed could never be taken from him. You're really going to trust her over me? Margaret looked at me. Then at him. Trust. Her voice softened. Eric. This isn't about who I like better. Then what is it about? Who behaved like family? He shook his head. She's not your daughter. No. Margaret nodded. She's something better. Eric flinched. She chose me. His mouth opened. Margaret continued. When I was sick, she stayed. When Lily needed a parent, she stayed. When the house needed work, she handled it. When your father's old tax issue came back, she dealt with it. When you forgot my birthday, she put your name on the card so I wouldn't feel bad. Eric looked at me. I looked away. I had forgotten about that. Margaret hadn't. Her voice broke slightly. And when I wanted to remove you completely from my trust, she defended you. Eric said nothing. Margaret wiped one tear from her cheek. Then you came home, he whispered. Mom. With a pregnant woman. His shoulders slumped. And you didn't ask how my heart was. He closed his eyes. You asked when the house would be yours. Silence. Margaret leaned toward him. One person stayed when I had nothing useful to offer except doctor visits, medications, and trouble. Then her eyes hardened. The other came back when he thought there was a house and money waiting. She held his gaze. You tell me, Eric. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Who was really family? He couldn't answer. Nobody could. Thomas finally cleared his throat. I think we should take a break. Eric stood abruptly. No. His chair scraped backward. We're not done. Rachel looked up. Your attorney appears to think we are. This is my family. I stood too. For once, I wasn't intimidated by the anger in his face. He pointed at me. You destroyed everything. I stared at him. No. You turned Mom against me. You took Lily. You poisoned Madison. Madison stood. Leave me out of that sentence. Eric ignored her. He looked at me. 9 years. Sarah. His eyes were wet now. 9 years. And you're just throwing them away? I felt strangely calm. You keep saying that. Because it's true. No. I picked up my purse. You think I'm throwing away 9 years because I'm the one who finally left. His face twisted. Then what do you call it? I call it stopping. Stopping what? Cleaning up after you. He stared. I continued. You threw our marriage away one day at a time. One missed call. One missed birthday. One lie. One bank transfer. One night with her. 1 month away. 1 year. Then another. My throat tightened. But I didn't look away. You just never noticed because I kept everything standing. His anger faded. For one brief second, he looked like the man I had married. Confused. Afraid. Almost sorry. I loved you, he said. My chest hurt. Maybe once. Those words would have changed everything. Now I finally understood them. No. Eric. He flinched. You loved what I did for you. His eyes dropped. I walked toward the door. Sarah. I stopped. He whispered. What am I supposed to do now? That question nearly made me laugh. For 9 years, everyone had asked me that. What are we having for dinner? Where are Lily's forms? Did Mom take her pills? Did you call insurance? Can you handle the repairman? Can you fix this? Can you remember that? Can you take care of everything? Now Eric was standing in the middle of the wreckage he had created, looking at me as if I should give him instructions. I shook my head. I don't know. Then I gave him the only answer he had ever given me when I was overwhelmed. You'll figure it out. I walked away. Madison left 20 minutes later. She didn't leave with Eric. That night, she sent me one message. I'm leaving him. I stared at it for a long time. There was a time when that message would have felt like victory. The other woman finally understood. The man who humiliated me finally lost her too. Instead, I felt tired. I typed, take care of yourself and your baby. Nothing more. No celebration. No friendship. No forgiveness. She had made her choices. I had made mine. A week later, Rachel called to tell me Eric had withdrawn his challenge to Margaret's trust. The financial review was continuing. His employer had also begun looking into several questionable reimbursements. And the divorce? I asked. He stopped contesting the major terms. I sat quietly. Rachel laughed. You don't sound excited. I am. Then what is it? I looked at the business license sitting on my desk. Bennett Residential Design. My name. My work. My future. I think I spent so long waiting for him to lose that I forgot winning wasn't supposed to be about him. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she said, that sounds healthy. Don't sound so surprised. I'm a divorce attorney. Healthy is not usually what people bring me. I laughed. After we hung up, I opened my laptop. There were 2 new client emails waiting. One was a couple in Matthews who wanted to modify their home after the husband's stroke. The other was a woman trying to move her 80-year-old mother out of assisted living and back home. Both had been referred by previous clients. I began typing my replies. My phone buzzed. For a second, I assumed it was Eric. It wasn't. James, dinner after your meeting? I smiled. Then another message appeared. Strictly celebratory. No divorce analysis. I'm an architect, not a therapist. I laughed. Good. You'd be terrible at it. 3 dots appeared. 7.00. I looked around the apartment. At Lily's backpack by the chair. At the design samples spread across my table. At a life that still looked unfinished. For the first time, unfinished didn't frighten me. It meant there was room to build something new. I typed one word. Yes. My divorce became final 4 months later. There was no dramatic courtroom speech. No judge looked at Eric and told him he had ruined his family. No one applauded when I walked out. I signed my name. Eric signed his. And 9 years of marriage ended in less than 20 minutes. Rachel closed the folder. That's it. I stared at the papers. That's it. That's it. I expected to feel something enormous. Relief. Grief. Victory. Instead, I felt tired. Eric sat across from me, staring at the table. The financial settlement required him to account for the marital money he had spent supporting Madison. Some of those expenditures were credited against his share of our assets. He also agreed to a custody schedule and ongoing child support for Lily. The bank's review of Margaret's account remained separate. So did the internal investigation at his company. Eric had lost the promotion he once assumed was guaranteed. He hadn't lost his job completely, but he had been removed from major financial responsibilities while the company reviewed his expense reimbursements. The man who once reminded me every week that he was building our future now spent most of his time explaining his past. When the attorneys left us alone for a few minutes, Eric finally looked at me. So this is what you wanted? I put my pen into my purse. No. His eyebrows pulled together. You filed. I know. Then what do you mean? I looked at him. This is what I needed. He leaned back. Same thing. No. I shook my head. I wanted us to have a good marriage. His jaw tightened. I wanted Lily to have her father home. He looked away. I wanted you to come back before I stopped missing you. That one hurt both of us. I could see it. His mouth opened, then closed. Finally he asked, "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. No. He looked surprised. I did for a while. And now? Now I don't want to spend enough energy on you to hate you. His face changed. That was crueler than I intended. But it was true. He gave a bitter laugh. James must be thrilled. I sighed. You still think this is about another man, isn't it? No. I stood. If James disappeared tomorrow, I would still divorce you. Eric stared at me. That seemed to be the sentence he had never prepared himself to hear. I continued. I didn't leave because somebody better came along. I picked up my coat. I left because being alone became better than being married to you. He lowered his eyes. I walked out. For the first time in almost a decade, I was Sarah Bennett because I chose to keep the name for myself and Lily Dutt not because I was Eric Bennett's wife. That distinction mattered more than I expected. 3 weeks later, I signed my largest design contract. Bennett Residential Design had started with 1 bathroom, then 1 kitchen, then 4 clients. Within 6 months, I had more work than I could manage alone. I hired a part-time project coordinator named Rebecca, a 52-year-old woman who had spent 15 years caring for her parents before returning to work. During her interview, she looked embarrassed by the gap on her resume. I know I've been out of the workforce a long time. I looked at her. How long? 11 years. And during those 11 years, she hesitated. I managed my parents' appointments, insurance, home health aides. My father had dementia toward the end, so you managed schedules, medical paperwork, contractors, budgets, emergencies, and multiple service providers? She blinked. Well, yes. I smiled. You're hired. Her eyes widened. Just like that? No. I slid a stack of scheduling forms toward her. You still have to prove you know how to use Excel. She laughed. I did too. But on the drive home that night, I cried. Not because I was sad, because I finally understood how many women had been taught to describe years of unpaid work as nothing. Eric had done it to me. Eventually, I had started doing it to myself. I stopped after that. My specialty became aging in place design, not institutional spaces, homes, real homes for people who wanted to grow older without feeling as if their lives had become medical facilities. One of my first major clients was a 74-year-old woman named Carol whose husband, Tom, had Parkinson's. She walked through my plans slowly. No hospital bathroom? No. No ugly stainless steel bars? We can make support look intentional. She narrowed her eyes. And I don't want my kitchen looking like a rehab center. It won't. Tom smiled. She's going to ask you that 6 more times. Carol elbowed him. I laughed. Then she looked at me seriously. I want him safe. I know. And I want us to still feel like ourselves. That was the part one understood better than most designers. I had spent years learning that needing help and losing dignity were not the same thing. We're designing for your life, I told her, not your diagnosis. Carol stared at me for a second. Then she nodded. Good. After that project, referrals doubled. James and I began working together more often. Not because he rescued my business. He didn't. In fact, we argued constantly. You cannot move that wall. He told me one afternoon. I can. It's load-bearing. That sounds like an architect problem. It becomes a Sarah problem when the second floor lands in the living room. I crossed my arms. You're very negative. I prefer structurally responsible. The contractor laughed so hard he had to leave the room. Those arguments became my favorite part of work. James never treated disagreement like disrespect. If he thought I was wrong, he said so. If I proved I was right, he changed his plan. The first time that happened, I almost didn't know how to react. He looked at me. What? You're changing it? Yes. Because I disagreed with you? Because you're right. I stared. He frowned. Sarah, are you okay? I'm adjusting to a new concept. What concept? A man admitting I'm right without acting like he's been shot. James laughed. That bad? Worse. Our first real date happened almost 7 months after I left Eric. I was the one who asked. We had finished a client meeting, and James was packing up his drawings. Are you free Saturday? He looked up. Depends on whether you're about to ask me to work. I'm asking you to dinner. He stopped. Completely. I raised an eyebrow. That was not the reaction I expected. He set the folder down. Dinner. Yes. With you. No. James. I'm arranging a romantic evening between you and my accountant. He smiled. You're nervous. I'm reconsidering. Don't. His expression changed. More serious. Sarah, are you sure? The question irritated me for half a second. Then I understood why he asked. Not because he doubted me, because he was giving me space to change my mind. I'm sure. He nodded. Then yes. Our relationship grew slowly, painfully slowly. According to Margaret. One Sunday she watched James fix a loose railing on her porch while I stood beside him arguing about the screws. Margaret looked at me. You two are exhausting. I frowned. What? He's in love with you. I nearly dropped my coffee. Margaret. What? He is not. She gave me the look reserved for very stupid people. Sarah. I taught 3rd grade for 31 years. I know what a boy looks like when he likes a girl. He's 36. They don't improve as much as you think. I laughed. James looked over. What's funny? Nothing. I said quickly. Margaret smiled at him. I was telling Sarah you're in love with her. I wanted the porch to swallow me. James stared at Margaret. Then at me. Margaret lifted her mug. You're welcome. She walked inside. I covered my face. I'm putting her in assisted living. You'd redesign it first. Obviously. James was still smiling. Then he became quiet. She's not wrong. My hands dropped. What? He looked directly at me. I love you. No dramatic speech. No kneeling. Just truth. I swallowed. That's very inconvenient. I know. I have a business. I know. I have Lily. I like Lily. I have baggage. You have an entire luggage carousel. I laughed through sudden tears. Then James stepped closer. But I'm not asking you to give anything up. That sentence mattered. More than I could explain. Eric had always loved me in exchange for something. Dinner. A clean house. a managed schedule, a cared-for mother, a convenient wife. James stood in front of me and asked for nothing. I love you too, I whispered. He smiled. Good. Then he kissed me. A year later, he proposed. Not at a restaurant. Not in front of a crowd. He asked after we spent an entire Saturday assembling cabinets for a model accessibility project. I was sitting on the floor, irritated because one drawer refused to align. James crouched beside me. Sarah, not now. I hate this drawer. I know. This manufacturer is dead to me. Good to know. He held out a ring. I stared at it. Then at him. You're proposing next to a crooked drawer? It felt honest. I started laughing. Then crying. Then laughing again. Yes. He blinked. I had a speech. Too late. You interrupted my proposal. I said yes. That's fair. Our wedding was small. Margaret insisted it happen in her backyard. Lily, now 10, stood beside me and complained that James looked way too calm. He should be nervous. She whispered. Why? Because he's marrying you. I stared at her. She grinned. That sounded nicer in my head. Before the ceremony, James found me alone for a moment. You okay? I nodded, then shook my head. I don't know. He took my hand. What are you afraid of? I looked at him. That marriage changes people. It does. My stomach tightened. Then he said, for example, I'm expecting half the closet. I laughed. That's never happening. I was afraid of that. He squeezed my fingers. Then his expression softened. I don't need you to take care of me, Sarah. My throat closed. He continued. I can make my own appointments. I laughed through tears. I can do laundry. Barely. I can feed myself. Sandwiches don't count. He smiled. Fine. Then he lifted my hand. But when you're tired, I want somebody to remember to take care of you too. That was when I cried. Not because I was hurt. Because for years, nobody had asked whether I was tired. An hour later, I married him. Eric did not attend. I hadn't invited him. But he still remained part of Lily's life. Not perfectly. Not consistently at first. He got better. Losing everything did not magically make him a good man, but it forced him to become a more present father, because no one else was going to maintain the illusion for him anymore. One Sunday afternoon, nearly 2 years after the day he came home with Madison, Eric arrived to pick Lily up. I was sitting at a patio table with James reviewing drawings for a retirement community renovation. Margaret sat nearby, laughing at something Rebecca had said. Lily ran outside with her overnight bag. Dad. Eric smiled. Hey, kiddo. He hugged her. Then she turned toward us. Mom, don't forget pizza Sunday. James called back. Already ordered. Extra mushrooms? No, James. I refused to ruin pizza. Lily rolled her eyes. Margaret laughed. Eric stood by his car, watching. Nobody was trying to hurt him. That was what made the moment so strange. Life simply continued around him. Margaret no longer waited for his phone calls. Lily no longer built her entire week around seeing him. I no longer checked my phone wondering whether he would come home. James did not replace him. That wasn't what had happened. We had simply stopped leaving an empty chair at every table for a man who chose not to sit in it. Eric walked toward me. Can I talk to you? James looked at me. I nodded. He gathered the drawings. Come on, Margaret. I need your expert opinion on whether Sarah is overcharging me. Margaret stood. She is. Traitor. I called. She smiled. Eric waited until they went inside. Then he looked at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He looked older. Not dramatically. Just enough that I could see the last 2 years had not been easy. How's business? He asked. Good. I saw the article. I raised an eyebrow. What article? The Observer piece. About accessible home design. Oh, you looked happy. I was. He nodded. Then he glanced toward the house. Mom looks good. She is. And Lily? You just asked her. You know what I mean. I softened slightly. She's doing well. He nodded again. Then his eyes moved toward James through the window. Finally, he asked, Are you happy? The question surprised me. Yes. He looked down. Then he said, Were you ever happy with me? I could have lied. I could have punished him. Instead, I told him the truth. Yes. His eyes met mine. I was very happy with you once. His face tightened. Then what happened? I almost smiled. You know what happened? He looked away. I think about that day sometimes. What day? The day I came home. Of course. I thought I was in control. I know. I thought you'd cry. I did. Not in front of me. No. His mouth twisted into a sad smile. You told me to check my email. I laughed softly. Yes. I hated you for that. I know. Then I hated myself because you had been preparing for months and I hadn't even noticed. I didn't answer. Lily opened the door. Dad, are we going? Eric turned. 1 minute. Then he looked at me again. I'm sorry, Sarah. He had apologized before. In lawyers' offices. In angry phone calls. When he wanted me back. When he wanted something. This was the first time he said it without asking me to fix the consequences afterward. So I nodded. I know. He waited. Maybe for forgiveness. Maybe for more. I didn't give either. Not because I was bitter. Because I no longer owed him emotional closure. He walked back to the car. Lily hugged me quickly. Love you. Love you too. Bye. James. James shouted from inside. No mushrooms. You're the worst. She climbed into Eric's car laughing. Before he drove away, he looked toward the porch. Margaret was standing beside James. I was holding rolled up plans for a project with my name on the contract. The house was full. The business was growing. My daughter was happy. His mother was healthy. And the family Eric had once believed would collapse without him had not collapsed at all. It had healed. That was his real loss. Not the house. Not the money. Not Madison. Not the promotion. He lost the right to believe he was the center of all our lives. I watched his car disappear down the road. Then James stepped beside me. You okay? I smiled. Yes. And this time, I meant it. Years earlier, Eric had convinced me that he was the reason our family survived. He earned the paycheck. He made the decisions. He lived in the real world while I stayed home doing work he barely noticed. For a long time, I believed him. Then he left for 3 years. And the strangest thing happened. The bills still got paid. The child still got raised. The emergencies still got handled. His mother recovered. The house kept standing. I kept standing. I had been so busy holding everyone else together that I never realized how strong I had become. The day Eric returned with a pregnant woman, I thought I was watching my marriage die. I was wrong. My marriage had been dying quietly for years. That day was something else. It was the day I stopped dying with it. Eric thought I had spent 3 years waiting for him to come home. I hadn't. Without realizing it, I had spent those 3 years learning how to live without him. And when I finally walked out that door, I didn't lose my family. I didn't lose my future. I didn't even lose myself. I finally got myself back. For years, I thought I needed a man to give me a life. I was wrong about that too. I only needed to stop letting one take mine away.